Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Well, Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
As I was just saying, I've been sick, so I'm not hugging anybody, so consider yourself hugged. But I want to thank everyone who showed up for the New Year's Eve, New Year's Day thing that we did last week already. Has it been? I don't know. It was nice to have a bunch of people here, and I was just going to say good time was had by everyone, but I'm not sure if everyone really had a good time. I walked away feeling sick, so if anybody else got sick, sorry. Omega 1, here's our announcements. Omega 1, we have lots of seats available for this next Omega 1, so if you have people who are thinking about attending, send them. This is the perfect time. It starts this Thursday. So tell your brother. It starts this Thursday. Then we have an impact training on the 18th. I will be delivering the Enneagram. For those of you who remember the Enneagram back a long time ago, George introduced the Enneagram. Gurdjieff, George Gurdjieff. It's George, right? George Gurdjieff. Do you remember? Do you remember? G.I. Gurdjieff. It's G.I. Gurdjieff. I'm pretty sure it's George Gurdjieff. Was a gentleman who's... Huh?
Oh, it's G.I.
G.I. It's G.I. Gurdjieff. Yeah, so it's George. I'm pretty sure it's George. Now that we've got that settled. Another George was the founder of the Fourth Way teachings, and the Enneagram is actually a Sumerian, I believe that's correct, a Sumerian way of discovering behavioral patterns. What kind of, hello Mindy, behavioral patterns, personalities, and how you interact with people. It's very beneficial, and it works a little bit off of numerology. So we're going to spend some time on the 18th, just the basics of the Enneagram, and then I'm probably going to do a follow-up on the next two. I'm going to need at least 3 impact trainings to do this. I have not published the Omega 4 Q&A, not because we're not doing it, I just completely forgot to publish it. I just realized it today. So when I get home tonight, I will look at our calendars and pick dates, and then send it out. I'll probably send out a separate email just to the Omega 4 grads to let you know when the next one, it'll most likely be next Wednesday for January, because I'm out of time, right? The next Monday night workshop is the 20th. This is the 6 basic human fears, common fears that everyone has, even though you might know people who say they are not afraid, they're lying to you, because everyone has 6 basic fears. Then the Omega 2 is January 23rd to the 26th, and I know there's some seats available on that. And the Omega 4 is February 21st to the 28th. So a brief update on Omega 8 is urgently the right word? Adamantly. I've been stringently working on attempting to finish the schedule. Have not met my goal. It was by the end of December is when I wanted to have it completed. I didn't get it complete. I'm about halfway, maybe a little bit more than halfway done on that. So I have to stop and turn my attention to, first of all, I have to rewrite the Omega 4 because there's some material I'm taking out and putting it in the 8. So that's got to be my next step. And then, of course, we're searching for a new building. So Omega 8 is not on hold. It's just not in my forefront. I'll keep you updated as the time comes. I published that it would be in June, and I'd like to keep that commitment, but I don't want to do it at the sacrifice of not a good training. So I'm leaving it that I'm leaving the option of me renegotiating with you that I may not be able to get it done in June. I'd rather perform a very good program than just because I said I was going to get it done. I think that takes care of everything. So since it's the beginning of the year, why don't we just open up the floor and have you guys check in and see how you're doing. Welcome you. Tonight I want to introduce you to a topic. This is from George's notes, and this is really cute. Those of you who remember, George had told a story about he had a computer, and he used to have the dot matrix. So remember the dot matrix printers? You young people, this is what happens on a dot matrix. It's all connected paper. And on his printer, the Q never printed. So throughout this paper, the Q's are missing. So it just made me laugh. I'm like, oh, because it looks like it says the mental equivalent. I'm like, what is that? And then I kept reading, and then there was another Q missing. I'm like, oh, this is the one that doesn't have the Q. So actually, Mark said, oh, it's funny how he left it all together. And I've left it the way he had it, just because it's hysterical. I'm just nostalgic that way, I suppose. But anyway, the mental equivalent is what his topic was about. His idea came from Dr. J.B. Rhine, who I did some research on. He did work for the University of the Duke University when George wrote this paper. No longer works there because he's been retired, but he started the Rhine Research Center Institute for Parapsychology. And his idea was through the trials that he did, and they did lots of trials, they discovered that there's more to the mind. So you have to remember, when George wrote this paper in the 80s, maybe 90s, that's when parapsychology just was coming around. Nobody was really talking about it. You know, everyone today knows the Matrix, bend the spoon, you know, I am the spoon. So we're familiar with stuff like that. Back then, telekinesis, telepathy, all of that was new. So this gentleman, who's a doctor, was thinking of the mental energy that you can project with your mind. You could move objects. What's that called when you move objects? Is that telekinesis?
Yes.
So telekinesis, that's telekinetics, that's right. And then reading people's minds. And so I thought this was very funny. When I was growing up, my brother and Christopher and I had this game that we played all the time. It was a paranormal game. So we had cards that had symbols on them, like squiggles or a triangle or a circle, and then they had colors, and then they had numbers, and you would have a board that you sat behind so that they couldn't stare you down and try to figure out what card you were holding. And you would see if you could read the person's mind. So I would hold the card up, and if it was squiggly lines, I would just look at the squiggly lines, and then he would tell me. And the intriguing thing was, if I played with my sister, she never got it. If I played with my older brother, he never got it. Christopher, 90% of the time, could read what I was reading, and the same for me with him. I mean, that because we really have a good, close connection. It never occurred to me that because there was more to it. I just thought, you know, because he was my brother, loved him, blah, blah, blah. It actually had a pendulum, too. I was playing with a pendulum when I'm 7 years old. Ooh, yes, no. I could never make it do what I wanted it to. It always gave me the wrong answer that I was looking for. But there was an actual game. That's what it was. It was set up, and you had pieces that you moved around and whatnot. And there was... Tell a story. What the heck, I'll tell a story. So one of my earliest memories is being taught how to move things with my mind. I know that sounds strange. So we'll say it's my pretend friend, my imaginary friend, would talk to me, and there would be times where I'd be sitting on the floor attempting to open and close the drawer of a dresser, or to open and close the door, and I never fully accomplished it. I could make the door shake a little bit, but I don't know if that was the air conditioning kicking on or not. As a little kid, I'd say it was me, but I don't know. But anyway, I was introduced to this at a very early age, the idea that my mind is capable of more than what we're being taught, especially in school. So when I came across this paper, I thought, wow, this is a good idea. So he leads into it with the concept of positive thinking. Now, I know George has presented topics on positive thinking and the idea of affirmations. And I know I've talked to you about affirmations as well. There's a quote that George, in the 1992 study group, he said, positive thinking is contrived. It is a scheme of the mind designed to manipulate things for selfish reasons. Now that's kind of a chunk to swallow. Positive thinking contrived, what does that mean? I'm selfish because I'm trying to think positively? Well, he goes on further to say that it's the behavior and the actions that change things, not just the thoughts. It's the feeling of what you're presenting. The mind just carries it out. So whatever you put in your mind, it will mold it and create it. The boots are black. If you put that in your mind, it molds it and creates it, even though we know that they're black. But that's the idea of projecting. Now, I know some of you have probably already heard me tell the story of when I first started facilitating. One of the very first tasks that George gave us was to project ourselves on what we'd like to see ourselves be as a facilitator. Everything, every detail you can imagine, how you walked, what you looked like when you walked in the room, how you answered a question, the words you chose, the movement of your hands, everything, as detailed as you could be, and then hold that picture in your mind. Did he do that with you, Mike, too? Yeah. And Diane? No. Okay, so it was early on. And so we did. We held, did you hold that picture, Mike?
Yep.
And how did you do? I'll put you on the spot.
Well, I cheated. I actually wrote it down. And it took in the neighborhood of 25 years.
Yeah.
And I went back, and the only thing I did not accomplish out of every the stuff, the list that I'd written, was something that required somebody else to do.
Okay.
But anything I put that I would get done, I got done.
Excellent. I would concur. The same thing true. I held it in my mind, and one day I turned around and went, whoa, I'm matching that picture. So he had the idea that when you put it in your mind, there's got to be more to it than just the thought of it. You had to live and breathe it. You had to give everything you had for it. Put your feeling, your life into it. So this gentleman, Dr. Rhine, wrote the book, Reach the Mind, The Reach of the Mind, he said. As a result of thousands of experimental trials, we found it to be the fact that the mind has a force that can act on matter. I believe this to be true. Have anybody sat here and tried to watch water boil?
Yes.
Some of us do this, you know, you're cooking a quick little macaroni and cheese or something. So you're standing there watching the water. Doesn't it look like, or doesn't it seem like, it takes longer for the water to boil when you're watching it?
Sure, that's a known fact.
It does. Scientists actually proved there was an electron, and I don't remember the name of the specific experiment, but when you looked at it, it was a sine wave, but when you looked away, it turned into, do you remember, Nicole? It didn't do a sine wave, it turned into something else. So when it was being observed, it was one thing, but when it wasn't being observed, it shifted into something else. So scientists concluded that our attention placed on something changes the energy. Now, how many people in here have ever had the idea of, or heard, when 3 or more are gathered in my name? You heard that? So the concept of more people praying, there's more of a benefit. I remember years ago, Richard Gere, when he was, buds with, just learning to be buddy with Dalai Lama, he won an award at the Oscars. He won an award. And when he went up, instead of doing I'm grateful for you and you and you, he just said, everybody, now that I have your attention, please, for one moment, just think peace. Just think peace in Tibet. His attempt was to try to get the world on one moment to be united. I think it was beautiful. He took a lot of criticism for it, but I thought it was a great thought. He has their attention. Why not? I mean, it was just really powerful. I don't know if it changed Tibet or not, but I was really inspired that he could have just made it be about him, his speech, and he didn't. He made it about trying to make a difference in the world and uniting everybody. We also experienced this in Omega. Come Sunday, we have what we call a group consciousness. Come Sunday, the group is united, they're feeling each other, they're supporting each other, you feel bonded and connected. That's what happens when you spend time together, being vulnerable, taking risks, and sharing common themes. So it's as if the group comes together. And when that group comes together, there's great power there. Now, that's one of the reasons why George would continue on with the Monday night workshops, to get the same mindset coming together and keeping that energy flowing, because he knows that when you dissipate and go back to your normal lives, you'll lose that energy. So it's like you need to be recharged. Many times people come back and say, oh, I just needed to feel what it was like to be in the room. Or it's great to be back here, because they feel revitalized. It's not the blue carpet. I'd like to say it is, but it's not. It's the experiences. When you walk into this room, it's almost like a reverent feeling because of the things that have occurred in this room and the disclosure that you've had in your life and from those around you. So, positive thinking. Back to the idea of positive thinking. Back in the 90s, positive thinking came onto the scene, positive affirmations. I'm a millionaire. I am a millionaire. I am a millionaire. And we acted like we're millionaires. And it threw a lot of people into poverty because it was false. So what we needed to do was to follow up with it. And here's what George introduces as. He says, why is it that so many people hold the power of positive thinking to be the greatest power known, and yet they never experience it? How many people do you know that do positive thinking and actually get the things that they're positively thinking about? What's the ratio? Anybody? Does anybody know anybody who doesn't? 1. That's pretty good. That's about it. It's not a very high ratio. There's a distinction between the people who do the positive thinking and the ones who, I'll call it falsely positive think. There's an element missing there. So, in 1930s, Dr. Maslow introduced the idea of actualization. He spoke of actualized people. And what he said is that an actualized person is one who lives at the highest level possible for a human being. How does one reach this level of actualization? Only when one stops thinking about it and becomes it. I'll say that again. Only when one stops thinking about it and becomes it. One of the first things we train every facilitator when they walk in the room to learn how to facilitate, you have to become the work. You can't just memorize it. It's got to be a part of you. You have to give your life to it, essentially. Surrendering, sacrificing, all of the virtues fall into play here. So, when one stops thinking about it and becomes it, the feeling of being shows up. So positive thinking is not so much thinking as it is feeling. Now there's a difference. You can think about what you'd like to do, and you can feel about what you'd like to do. Does everyone understand that? So we can think about something, and we can feel. So you can think about an event, and you can feel an event. Got it? That's the distinction. You can think about an event, and you can feel about an event. So what I want you to do is have a conversation with your buddy, find someone to talk to, sorry, buddy up, and then talk about an event that you think about, and then switch to how you feel about the event. And I want it to be a momentous event, like a graduation, or birth of a child, or your first job, something that really stands out that you don't have to make up. So talk about the way you think about that event, and then how you feel about the event. Go ahead. So I wanted to just start talking about the difference between thinking of succeeded and feeling of succeeding. So there's a thinking succession, feeling successful, and feeling successful. And that really is different. I can think I'm successful and be poverty-stricken. I can think I'm wealthy. Now, I'm not saying the people who are poor and say they don't need money because they have each other, I'm not discounting that, absolutely not. What I'm trying to correlate this, I want to talk a little bit about money because George connects this to money. He says most people think positive thinking for money. They do the positive affirmations. I won the lottery. I'm a millionaire. I'm rich. I'm successful. So they connect it to monetary value. And really, those of you who've been around, you understand the idea that money is a physical realm, so you have to do something physical to achieve the physical monetary. Now, that almost seems like a contradiction because I'm stating feelings. What I want to connect this to is the essence of what it feels like to be successful, if that's your goal, to be successful. So I was thinking about a lot of the events in my life. Now, as a child, I never thought about what I wanted to do. So I just kind of went from here to there to here to there. I went to college because my next door neighbor behind us was going to that college, and I went, oh, that sounds good. Literally, that's how I ended up at that college. And when I went to that college, I met my adopted dad, the teacher, who changed my life around. How did I know that he was there? But it was just, whatever, I'll just follow this. I never thought that's what I'm going to do. I did have one event that I know I manifested or used positive thinking as a feeling. So when I came to Arizona in 1992, I was looking for a place to live. Now, I didn't want to live in an apartment. I wanted a townhouse. I wanted a townhouse on Central Avenue. I wanted a townhouse that was 2 stories, had two carports. I wanted a townhouse that had 2 bedrooms and a washer and dryer and all the appliances included, and I only wanted to pay $500. Everybody thought I was nuts. They all thought I was nuts, not going to find it, never, 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 never. Didn't care. I kept that in my mind. I know I'm going to find this place. And what do you think happened? I found a place for $500 on Central Avenue, right where all the beautiful trees are, for $500. Exactly what I wanted. Now, was it exactly the color of the carpet or the size of the kitchen? No, because it was quite funny. The kitchen is so narrow that when you open the door, he can't open the refrigerator door all the way because it hits the other counter. So I actually used to pin Mackenzie in the kitchen sometimes when I was babysitting her. I'd just open the fridge and say, honey, just play, and leave the door open so she'd be in the, so I know, like if I had to go to the bathroom or something, I didn't want her wandering about. I shouldn't have told that one. So anyway, like the dishwasher, if you opened the dishwasher, that was it. You couldn't cross the kitchen until the dishwasher door was back up. But it was everything I wanted. I had a dishwasher, a refrigerator, a microwave, washer and dryer, all of it included, and for $500, 2-bedroom, upstairs, downstairs. The only thing it didn't have was a fireplace, but I was good with that because I put a chimney in the backyard. We were happy. I still have it, as a matter of fact. Well, but for years, I'll say, I kept that thought for $500, so I had that place for 9 years, and my rent never went up. And then they sold it to me. And do you know what they sold it to me for? $500. No, I'm kidding. My landlords were so cute. They were so adorable. I made a lot of changes to the place, so they actually sold it to me at cost. I mean, it was a good deal when I bought it. It was incredible. So, anyway, not about me. But that's the one thing that I know I felt, and no matter how many people told me, nope, you're never going to have it, never going to have it, never going to have it, I felt it. So I knew I was going to have it. Now, my next thought is building. I have people telling me right now, I'm never going to find what I want. I smile at them. I just smile because I feel it. And I've had experience. I'm not going to discount what I feel. So I have the feeling. I feel what it feels like to walk into this building. I see this building. I feel what it feels like to be in the room. I feel the people in the room. That's what it takes. It's not just the thought, 3,200 square feet, 1 story or 2 stories, a parking lot, where it's not just the thought. It's the feeling of being there. Just like when you feel when you walk into this room. It's that feeling that you project forward. That's what I want to talk about tonight. So it's not just positive thinking. It's positive thinking as well as projecting that feeling. So the trick is to actualize yourself, not the concept. Not the concept of wealthy, but how does it feel to be wealthy? What do you see yourself doing? If wealth is what you're after, what does it feel to be successful? I've worked for myself for I don't even how long, but I held that in my mind. I didn't want a 9-to-5 job. I knew I'm not designed for a 9-to-5 job. I created my job. Now, the idea is, I'm going to get to a couple of quotes. He quotes Emerson in here a great deal. So the trick is to actualize yourself, not just the concept. Many people actualize concepts, which confines the process to only your brain. That's it. It sticks in your mind. This makes you smarter, but not more successful. You're not any closer to your desires or goals or dreams. Life offers no rewards to those who memorize concepts. It's not just memorization. Positive thinking blended with positive feelings equals dynamite. That's what he said. It's dynamite. When you put the positive feelings with your positive thinking, that is an explosive combination. You can move mountains with that. The mind has an awesome power. I'm sorry, I skipped a paragraph. You didn't know that, never mind. How can one be an actualized person? Integration of feelings, which I've already mentioned, nothing less. Intense desire, wanting it until death. All you think about is this one thing. That's it. You live, eat, breathe it. I'm sure you've heard that before. You live, eat, breathe it. You give your life to it. You know what it's like to write a book. You give your life to it. Everywhere you go, you're writing something down. Oh, it's always in the back of your mind. What else can I do? What else? George was an excellent example of this. Wherever he went, whatever he was doing, he was always taking notes on what to deliver in the classroom. So you eat, you live, and you breathe it. You keep that in your forefront. It is always your focus. Everything else falls to the side. Now, does that mean that you'll lose out on certain things? Well, yeah. If you're attached to having people like you, you may not be successful. If you're attached to your family and being involved in their lives, you may not achieve your goals because they may not want you to be successful. If you're attached to having, it just went out of my mind. if you're attached to having people act a certain way, you can't do that. It has to be on you. You can't have positive feelings towards other people. Gosh, I wish Doyle would just go get a job. You can't do that. It's about you. It's about you. You can't attach yourself to other people. So this is where we have danger. When people interfere in other people's lives with well wishes. Oh gosh, I'm sorry they got robbed into. I'm going to pray for Tamara and Kurt and make sure that nothing bad happens to them anymore. And, I'll be there to support them. Well, that might rob them of an opportunity to grow. So we sometimes interfere because we have positive wishes for them. Now, this is an intriguing topic to me because Mark, my husband, is one of the most positive people I've ever met. It's truly annoying. No. It can be at times. If I'm in a bad mood, I want to be in a bad mood. Don't come to me and tell me to do gratitude greetings. Smack is what you're going to get. Leave me alone. But he really is one of the most positive people I've ever met. He wakes up in a good mood. His funny line to his kids is, "Do you know what today is? The best day ever." Now, that's a funny thing, but his daughter, the grunchiest grouch that I've ever met in the morning, I'm scared of her sometimes in the morning because she's so snarky and snarly. When she hears Mark say, "Do you know what today's day? You know what today is?" And she'll go, "Dad, don't start now!" And she'll start yelling at him because he's just trying to make her be happy. I'm just insane about that, so I kind of stay out of the way. But anyway, he always seems to find a positive attitude, always finds the positive. Anything that's bad's happening, he always says, "Well, here, look at it this way." At times this really pisses me off because I'm supposed to be the one who is aware, and then here's this little slap behind me. "Oh, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this?" Now, I'm really painting a bad picture. It's not that bad, but it really is. It's very beneficial because he reminds me quickly, "Oh wait, what path do I want to go? Negative or positive? Okay, am I feeding a thought process of negative, or can I switch this to a thought process of positive? And am I feeling negative, which is true?" So the last couple of months, I've been aware of when I'm feeling that yuckiness, it's not just in my mind. I am feeling yucky. And if I'm feeling that, what am I projecting into my life? If I'm feeling yucky, I'm putting that forward into my life. That's not what I want. So it's been very amazingly intriguing, experimental-wise, kind of interesting to catch myself, being a competitive person, I try to catch myself before he does. Like if I'm going negative, I'll do it real quick. No, positive, before he catches me on it. So it's kind of turning into a little competition. He didn't know that. He just found that out right now. But back to the idea of thought and feeling. When I combine them together, I really wanted to put this out because you can create negativity with this. Even though it's called positive thinking, the combination of the feeling and the thoughts put together will create whatever you're thinking and feeling. So if you have positive thoughts but you're feeling negative, they're going to kind of balance each other out. You'll be lost, essentially. But if you have negative and negative, you're going to create negative. Positive and positive, you will create positive. Oh, this is funny. I'm looking at everybody's eyes, and then I look down to make sure I looked at the dog, too. Everyone's involved. So positive, positive, negative, 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 positive, you're going to balance and cancel each other out, and again, just be considered lost. Now, there are people who simply sit around and dream of these concepts and then grovel in their unworthiness. Part of the reason why we don't achieve it is because somewhere inside of us we do not feel worthy. 99%, there's that 0.2% or 0.1%, you don't feel worthy of it. The doubt comes in, well, that part will destroy you. Even something so little, one ounce of doubt will destroy you. I remember reading somewhere where there was a conversation with the devil, and I don't remember, I think this was out of a Gurdjieff book, where the devil was talking about his greatest weapon. And it wasn't vengeance, it wasn't anger, it wasn't guilt or rage, it was doubt. He said when he used doubt, he won all the time. Because once he had the doubt, then he can use all his other tools. So that never left me, and I always thought about this. What are the things that I doubt in myself? Do I doubt things in myself? And when I do see the consequences of it. So, I'm not saying that I never doubt, of course, am I doing the right thing for my kids? Am I doing the right thing for, not right, but is this the course of action I want to go? So doubt is good to keep me in track, but as long as I don't get lost in it, and it doesn't become it's not just second guessing, it would just be evaluating, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So, the mind has an awesome power, we tend to forget it. We tend to forget that we create who we are, that we're the creators of everything. So Emerson says, man surrounds himself with the true image of himself. So look at your life. The things that you have in your life, the people who are in your life, the jobs that you have in your life, the books, the food, everything is a result of your thought process. It's your own image. This is a really powerful statement. Because there's some people who say, no, it's the government's fault, or my parents' fault, or my siblings' fault, or my children's fault, and we're so quick to blame. Intriguingly enough, human beings blame for the negative and take credit for the positive. Isn't that funny? We only can create positive, and the negative's not me. We lose sight of that we're creating everything. Everything that happens to us, we are the creator of it. Now, I know this is hard to swallow for some of you. A person with low self-esteem finds it impossible to create fortune. Instead, he creates that which he holds tightly to himself. Whatever the result, the power of positive thinking is always working. So you produce whatever you hold on to in your mind, even if it's a negative event, as I've already stated. George states that it's time for a shift in our thinking. People tend to call good fortune a creation and bad fortune a tragedy. The tendency is to avoid responsibility for negative events and take credit for positive events by calling them creations. Oh, I created that. Well, oh, I did that. We positively create both via the same process. So, before I head on anymore, I want you all to think about an event in your life that was not positive. Let's call it tragic. An event that happened. Have a conversation with your buddy and see if you can turn this into you finding how you created that event. So, when I was thinking about tragedy, of course, here at Omega, nothing is a tragedy. We find value in everything. So I had a hard time trying to find something that I considered tragic. Now, I could think of, when my dog died or when I had to put the cats to sleep, but that involves something else. I was really trying to be something as a direct result of me. I was in car accidents. We could say that I chose to be in the car, whether the passenger or the driver. I was in a car accident. I've only created one car accident, but I've been in tons. And you see how I said that? I only created one. I only was the initiator of a car accident, but I've been a passenger in many car accidents, and even as a person driving, hit by other people. So I actually only hit one person. So I guess I'm due to hit a bunch more people now, to even up the score. So I was trying to think of creating a tragedy. Now, when I think about the words tragedy, I think of something that's tragic, sad, we have judgment about, we wished it didn't happen. And I don't have any of that. Everything in my life is a reason and a purpose. And so, again, the tragedy is hard. There was one time, though, I remember, so George's grandchildren, I called them my foster girls. One time I had a disagreement, and honestly, I can't even remember what it was, but I had the girls here at the printing company. I was going to take them home. Oh, I know what happened. The girls I was going to take them home, and my rule was no physical fighting. If you're going to argue and scream, that's okay, but no physical fighting. And I turned the corner just in time to see one of the girls full out punch the other one in the face. I lost it. Not lost it, but I just yelled, "Get out of the car now! You find your own way home!" And I left her here and took the other one home. Physical violence I do not want to see. I don't want to be a part of it, so I left. Well, what I discovered was that the other child had smacked her first, and she was just responding to that, which still not acceptable, but it wasn't that she initiated, because she was the older one. She should know better. that's a bad statement to say. It's hard to say, but you know, when they're around me, they know physical violence, no physical violence. And she was bigger, so it was a heavier hit. So all I saw was a mark on one face. I didn't see a mark on the other face. Well, when I found out what had happened, I had a knot in my stomach. I can't believe I yelled at her. When the other one actually started the fight, and she was the instigator all the time. So it was probably the only time I've ever had a upset between her. And I remember I went to her house and I bought her a rose. And she was 15, I think. It was the first time anybody had given her a flower or a rose. And I just bawled my eyes out. I couldn't even get the apology out of my mouth. I'm like, I didn't know. And she just stood there and she started crying, so we're both standing there crying. And I'm like, okay, here, bye. But that's really something tragic, I think, because not only was I injured, but I potentially injured another person. I would consider that tragic. Anyway, the idea of that, now, in my mind, what was the thought process of it? No physical violence. So if I see physical violence, I went to a quick assumption. I should have stopped and said, what happened? But I jumped to a conclusion. That was my creation. I put that in my head. So it was the feeling as well as the thought, boom, I'm yelling. And I don't yell. I think that's the only time I ever raised my voice to her. The other one got it a couple more times because she really was an instigator. If you know her, you all know. She really was priceless. So, back to our creations. Back to Emerson. Every spirit builds itself a house, and beyond its house a world, and beyond its world a heaven. Know then that the world exists for you. You have created, what you have created is perfect for you. For what you are is all that you can see. I'm going to say that again. What you are is all that you can see. Now, I mulled this around today for a little bit thinking, what I am is all that I can see. Well, that makes sense, actually. As a toddler, physically, I couldn't see what was on top of the counters, so all I had accessible to my life was on the floor. And as I got older, I was able to see what was on the counters, and I was accessible to that. And as I got more nimble, I was able to climb above, on top of things. So what I saw was in my vision. But when I didn't see it, I didn't know I wasn't missing out on it. I didn't know. So let's say, this example comes to mind, so I'm going to use it. My mom's in the kitchen. Now remember, my mom's bipolar, so bad time. I walked into the kitchen and she was making eggnogs, for a chocolate eggnog for everyone. And I walked in and said, well, I want one. And she goes, well, what's an eggnog? You know, really snarky to me. I didn't know what was in an eggnog. I thought egg. So I said, an egg. And she goes, what else? And I said, water. I mean, okay. So she dropped the hard-boiled egg into the water and gave it to me. And everybody else is drinking the whipped-up malted eggnog thing, right? So, how did I create that? Well, I saw something that I was unaware of and attempted to create it without any background, without any information. That's a good picture of what can happen. We see what somebody else has, we don't know how they attained it, but we want what they have, so we're missing the step. So we go for the concept again without our feelings. So, good to be inspired, great to have goals, but make sure you know how you got there. This is why many times people do not like the process of discovery, the process of doing research. Any task that you take on, research is necessary. Any task that you take on. You want to be a writer, you have to learn how to write, how to appeal to people. You want to be an orator, you have to learn how to interact with people, how to raise your voice, the volume, and whatnot, how to present yourself. You want to be a yoga instructor, you go and learn yoga. So everything we have in our life, we've taught ourselves, or we've learned. We went out and looked for it, followed the steps, and then implemented it. Now, back to the idea of what you see. Emerson says that whatever person can see, that he creates. As we observe other people's lives, we know exactly what the person sees and doesn't see. This is what feedback is good for. Because we can watch a person and say, well, you're not seeing this. And what happens when we have unsolicited feedback? Yes, I'm looking at you. What happens when you get unsolicited feedback? Usually causes a reaction. So, you have to follow along the lines of appropriate way of delivering the feedback. But we can clearly look out and see, and this is a funny thing about human beings, we can see the flaws in others before we see the flaw in ourselves. It's easy. Oh, no, here's what you need to do. We're very quick on that, but when it comes to correcting it here, oh, don't tell me what to do. I know what to do. And we get arrogant and belligerent and blah, blah, blah. So when it comes to looking at another individual, we can see what they have, what they see, and they cannot see. If they could see more, they would create more. Therefore, those who have not, see not. Now, that's a pretty bold statement. Those who have not, see not. So you can have the argument, well, what about the people in poverty? Do they create that? They're born into poverty. Do they create that? Well, I can go through history and point out lots of people who were born in poverty and didn't end in poverty. Abraham Lincoln, one of the first ones, born in a log cabin. Born in a log cabin, ended up being the President of the United States. You don't have to really be born into wealth to achieve wealth. There's a great commercial going on now, and I don't know who the product is, but it goes and all it shows is rooms, and it gives you a date, and then a title of a company. So it shows you a garage, and it says eBay, 1982. Then it shows a dorm room, Dell Computer, 1964, or something like that. So it just goes to little places, a coffee house, someplace, Starbucks probably. But it's a great commercial because it shows you that these great companies started in these little tiny rooms. They didn't have greatness when they started. Bill Gates in a garage. That's how he started. Apple Computer, same thing, in a garage. So to me, it's not about where you start. It's really about what your direction, where you're going to finish. And that passion you have to where you finish. Those two must be combined. I don't want to run out of time here. So, therefore, build your own world. As fast as you conform your life to the pure idea in your mind, that will unfold in great proportions. Let me back up for a second. The preamble of the Constitution says, all men are created equal. Now, I never really gave much thought to this until I started having a conversation with George. He struggled with this. How are all men created equal? I just talked about people are born in poverty. There are some born in poverty. There are some people who are handicapped. There are some people who die within minutes of birth. So how is that equal? What do you mean about equality? It's not all men are born equal. So we had lots of conversations about this. And then he introduced me to the concept of positive thinking. And he said, what he discovered is, we are all born equal because we all have a mind. And a mind has the ability to think. So everyone has that tool. That's our equality. Our situations may not be equal. Our environment may not be equal. Our parents may not be equal. Our education may not be equal. But we all have the ability to think. We all have the ability to create. That's our equality. And that's what appeals to individuals. I think for Omega Vector, when people come together, the idea of discovering self-awareness, that's a common thought process. It's a thread that's threaded throughout Omega 1, Omega 2, and Omega 4, and Omega 8. It's the idea of elevating our consciousness, expanding our consciousness. I read today that expansion actually isn't the goal. Expansion is just the action. So I thought that was really phenomenal because I always say expand, expand, now I have to change my word. So expansion is really just the action. What I'm looking for is consciousness. That's what I'm looking for. It's consciousness. And consciousness ties right to mental equivalency. So the topic of this is mental equivalency. The preamble, as I already said, that the idea that all men are created equal, the idea is that we can create, we all have the ability to think. We have the same material to build, the creative energy within us, the feelings. So when you add thought and intense feelings, not just feelings, intense feelings. When you put intense feelings, your life on the line, then you have creation. Think about this. Michelangelo. Anybody know about Michelangelo? Which is really just his first name. I found that out. He lived and breathed what?
Art.
The art! The Sistine Chapels. That's all a result of Michelangelo. Any one of the polymaths that I brought up last couple of workshops. Anybody who gave their life to it, they had it. So you had Walter Russell. An uneducated individual who's an architect, a sculptor, a painter. You have Aristotle, who changed the world, essentially, one of the greatest polymaths of all times. Einstein. And then, of course, I have to include this, The Big Bang Theory. Those of you know I love this show on TV. But it's a bunch of physicists, theoretical physicists. They get paid to do what? To think. They get paid to think and create. So there's actually a field out there where you are putting your life into your thoughts. So they're putting their thoughts. Now you can't tell Sheldon he's feeling something, but he does very strongly. The character's written really well. But anyway, so here's the equation. The required feelings go like this. A willingness to die for what you want. George says, most people simply do not want it bad enough. So you can project it, but you don't want it bad enough. To where you have to say, if it's the last penny I have, I will give it. If it's the last shirt on my back, you got it. If it's the last thing I have, it's yours. So you have to be able to put it on the line. Now, many people have not reached this place, or they put themselves on the line. Life challenges us. George used to talk about the idea of being a facilitator and dedicated to the work. So much so that he had a staff member whose son was killed during the training. She didn't leave. She stayed. Kathy Casolo, those of you who remember her, her daughter committed suicide. She stayed. These are dedicated individuals. They gave their life to this work. George gave his life to this work. Early on in my days, I got a phone call from my older brother, whom I don't usually get phone calls from in the middle of the day especially. My nephew came down with a disease and was rushed to the hospital. Wanted to know if I could come over there and watch the other kids while they were staying in the hospital. Do you know what my answer was? When the training's over. Literally, I had to say that to him. It was silence on the phone. And I said, Phil, I will be on the first flight out, Sunday afternoon. I'm on the first flight out, but I'm not leaving. That's commitment and dedication. And look where I am today. Not in your face, but look where I am today. Committed. I'm the director of Omega Vector. Not that was my intention. The work is my intention. So, I know what it's like to have you on the line, where you're going to have the disapproval of family, the disapproval of your loved ones, the disapproval of bosses, the disapproval of anybody in your life. To face that, that's putting it on the line. The idea that you'll lose everything. I've watched George do this many times. He would give his salary to keep this organization running. To keep Papago Printing alive, he wouldn't take a paycheck. Let everyone else get paid and he wouldn't get paid. That's to keep the place running. How many people do that? He had the essence of creation, is the best way I can say that. He was the essence of creation. So, putting yourself on the line, willing to die for it. Whatever your real conviction of yourself is, that's what you'll demonstrate. A phrase which perfectly describes the human experience is called mental equivalence. Whatever one experiences in life is always preceded by the mental equivalence. So what you have now has already been in your mind. It's just a product of it. So that's the mental equivalence. Therefore, if you want tomorrow to be different, what do you have to do today?
Change your thinking.
Where's the 9 dots? I have to proceed with a mental equivalence of what I want. So it starts here, mental equivalence. But then it must transcend to my heart, feelings as well, and combine the two of them. So I have to be able to project what I want and then feel it with every essence, atom in my body. Now, I am aware, I'm saying this, and people are going to go home tonight and say, I won the lottery! I am the and you're going to put all your energy, and then you don't win the lottery on Wednesday. You're going to come back to me next Monday and say, it didn't work. It doesn't happen overnight. Mike said it, 28 years, it doesn't happen overnight. You can't just flip a switch and that's it. It's not like striking a match and you have fire. Ooh, caveman, ooh, I have fire. You need to have substance to burn. You need to have something that's going to continue on. So this is a road. This is called the work. This is something you must continue on feeding. feeding the fire you wish to burn, I guess, is the idea that we speak about. So, if you are seeking an immediate result, do not start this right now. Don't. Because you're going to be dissatisfied, and you're going to be deterred and not even pick up this concept. Take something that does not have immediate result. Take something that you know 4 or 5 years down the road. That's what you want. Focus on that. Just like when George had us facilitating, how do you wish to be seen? And hold that picture in your mind for years is what we went after. Those of you who've been here for quite some time, you understand you do the work. Does this mean we've mastered the work? My husband will be the first one to tell you I still react. Occasionally. I still react. So it doesn't mean, I'm sorry honey, I'm picking on you tonight. It doesn't mean that you've mastered it. You're just doing the work. So again, if you're looking for immediate results, don't take this on. The mental equivalence, the process of doing a mental equivalence, has to be with creating a dream, not an immediate result. So a dream, what is it you're wishing to desire? There's 5 steps to creating your dream. The first step is dramatize yourself in the role you aspire to reach. So again, as a facilitator, we pictured ourselves. If you want to be an accountant, what do you want to see? What kind of employees do you want? Do you want to have your own business? Do you want to work for somebody else? Do you want to be a yoga teacher? Do you want to be a construction engineer? Picture it in your mind. Every little detail, from the type of office you have, the type of chair you have, the interactions, the people you have, your clientele, every detail that you can think of. Picture that in your mind. Now, Mike said he cheated by writing it down. I don't really consider that cheating. If you want to write it down, write it down. How many people have had this idea of when you're looking for a mate, you write down the positive and negatives of what you're looking for in a mate? Has anybody had that? Yeah. I did that. I wrote down a list, tucked it away in the corner. And when I married Mark, I found it. Do you know what happened? It's almost identical. It really is almost identical to what I wanted. There's 2 things on there that's not there yet. I'm working on it. But truly, I forgot about it. I put it down, I wrote on it, I meditated for a while, and then, I moved on to something else, but I had it tucked away, and I found it in a book. And I was amazed that, wow, that's the list that I had created. So that's a good picture of mental equivalence. Project whatever you want, hold on to it, dramatize it. Make it as dramatic as you can. Who's the one who said all the world's a stage and we are only actors? Shakespeare? That's it, really. Think about it. Picture yourself and watch yourself interacting. Watch yourself doing the things you want to do. You want to take more risks? You want to go walk on the wall of China? Put the wall of China in front of you. Watch yourself walk across that. Feel the cold of the China. Here are Chinese around you. Do everything you can. Go to Chinese restaurants. Do everything that you can. I did say that, I'm sorry. Everything you can to project it and solidify it. Now, I do know of some people who have done this, where they converted their house into something they wanted. So you could make a room. As a matter of fact, Shirley Karras did this. She had a meditation room. She visualizes and talked to me about it before she created it. And it ended up being exactly what she said she wanted. It was a beautiful meditation room. It was up in the 2nd story of this one house. It was beautiful, but it was what she wanted. She created it. So she actually did physically build it, but it was a projection of what she had in her head to the finest detail. So dramatize it, dramatize it, dramatize it. What else are you going to do with your mind instead of attack other people? Drama yourself. Instead of being a drama queen, drama inside. What do we call that? Internal queenage. No, all right. Number 2, prove your faith in the dream by preparing for it. Now this is the research. So prove your faith by preparing for it. Okay, if I want to be successful in 2017, what are the things I have to do? Who are the connections I have to make? What are the programs I have to design? Who are the people I need to have help me? Who's delivering it now? How can I get information from them? So preparation. Number 2, preparation. Drama and then preparation. Again, I'll just use me as an illustration. Hold that image in your mind of the facilitator. Learn the material. Memorize, memorize, memorize. Learn the material. Number 3, alter minor details as you proceed towards the dream. So, let's say I have the illusion dream that I will be living in Sedona. on a specific mountain with no neighbors and no UFOs, but I will have my little house up on the top of the mountain. Now, if somebody buys that mountain, or if the mountain gets demolitioned for something else, alter your dream, okay? The mountain was destroyed, then I will just go find something else. So always be aware that there's modifications happening, but never lose sight of the original dream. So my dream is to be a facilitator, always hold sight of that. Okay, there's no room for facilitators, no problem. You need me to do the team training? I'll do the team program. No problem. Alter, modify. As long as you hold on to your original dream. Number four, be a finisher as well as a beginner. Now this doesn't mean just in your dream. It means you start having integrity now. And you keep your integrity. From the minute thing of whatever you say, you do. Don't say something if you're not going to do it. Do what you say you're going to do. So follow through. By following through on your actions today, you'll produce your dream tomorrow. Because that's completion. Following through on completing. So if I'm a habit of completing right now, then it's naturally that I'll complete there. Because I'm setting myself up for completion. So I feel like I'm going to tip this over. But follow through. So be a finisher as well as a beginner. And the last thing, keep the mental image to yourself. This is reticence, which is why reticence is one of my favorite virtues. The more we talk about our dreams, the more we talk about ourselves, we disperse the energy. All that energy that I have maintained within me of what I want, the more I talk about it, there's no energy to project it. There's no energy to carry it through. So when you have a dream, when you are wanting to accomplish this goal, you don't tell anybody, except somebody that you might want to work with you in that, but hold it to yourself. I don't think my two best friends are sitting here. Have I ever shared with you the list of what I wanted in a man?
No.
No. I've known them for years. Never shared it. Not necessary. Does that mean I hate them? At times. No, I'm kidding. No, it's because I understand. Keep it to yourself. Have to keep it to yourself. I also don't prod them. I don't ask them because I don't want them to not succeed. Not that I don't love them. I want them to have that picture in their mind and let it come to fruition. So, keeping it in your head. I never published to anybody the picture I had of as a facilitator. I did publish that I had a picture, but I never published what it was. So it's okay to say you have a goal and what you're striving for, because you can also get assistance. Hey, I'm striving to be a facilitator. Can you give me some notes on public speaking? Can you give me some ideas on presenting programs? So I can do that without sharing the whole picture. Does that make sense? So reticence is so important. It's the key. It's really the last one, but it's the most important one. It's the key. Whatever you task, whatever you take on, to keep it reticent. Do not share, unless it's somebody you're going to share the vision with. Do not share it. Now this is why, I mentioned this a few workshops ago, George and I used to do a meditation together, and that was something that was very special with us, but we created a lot of activities through that, because we both had the same goal in mind, so we would do a meditation together, which was really delightful, and I meant to do that the last time we did a meditation. I totally forgot during the impact training. But I never shared that with anyone, never told anybody that that's what we were doing until, 2 or 3 months ago, and we did that 15, 19 years of just having that between us. So by having something that's just you, it gives you the energy to project to it and the faith to believe in it. As I said, when people told me I wasn't going to find a townhouse on Central Avenue, I wasn't deterred because I felt it. It was every part of it. I had these in play. And I didn't share with them what I had in mind. I just said, I want a townhouse for $500. I didn't have everything. I didn't say to everybody, da-da-da-da-da. I just said, townhouse 500, because people knew I was looking, well, how much do you want to spend? 500. Oh, you're not going to get that. So that was evil, kind of. No evilness here. So again, the 5 steps are, dramatize yourself in the role you aspire to reach. Be as dramatic as you can be, truly, to the minute detail. Write it all down if you need to. Number 2, prove your faith in the dream by preparing it. Research, research, research. Preparation, preparation, preparation. Number 3, alter any minor details as you proceed towards the dream. Modify, if it needs to, modify, but always adhere to the dream. Number 4, finish as well as begin. Start with integrity now. Start the pattern, the process of creating and completion now. And of course, number 5, keep the mental image to yourself. Do not share it with anyone else. You can share the idea, but not the details. If you can get away with not sharing the idea, that's perfect too. So I really am looking forward to doing the impact training as well. It's a lot to take on, but I really am looking forward to delve into that as well as the 6 basic fears. I hope you show up for that next one because you'll be surprised by some of the fears that are so basic everyone has. Thank you everyone. Have a good night. Remember, Omega 1. So if you know anybody, send them here. The doors are open. And graduation on Sunday. Have a good night, everyone.